They said poverty married poverty when she was forced to wed a man no one respected. But the truth was far stranger. The poor farmer she now called husband was, in fact, a billionaire hiding in plain sight. In the heart of an African village, where clay huts clung together like secrets and the air always smelled of roasted maize and red earth after rain, there lived a girl named Ebony. Her name meant, "We asked for her and she came," but to many in the village, Ebony was nothing more than a burden. A daughter of a poor widow, thin as a reed and always carrying water jars heavier than her shoulders could bear. Her father had died when she was just 5, swept away by fever. Her mother survived by working in other people's fields, returning home at night with sore hands and little to show for it. They lived in a mud hut patched so many times it looked like a quilt of brown scars. Yet, despite her poverty, Ebony carried something in her that the villagers both envied and resented: beauty. Her eyes were wide and glowed like midnight oil lamps, her skin dark and luminous as polished ebony, and her smile, though rare, lit up like dawn. But beauty was dangerous when wrapped in rags. Men mocked her, women whispered, and children laughed when her torn slippers flapped against the dust. When Ebony turned 18, the whispers turned louder. In the village, a girl unmarried by that age was already an old shadow. Suitors with goats, yams, and money lined up for wealthier girls, while Ebony's mother sat in silence, unable to offer a dowry, unable to promise even one chicken. And then came the gossip, laced with cruelty. She is pretty, but what will she bring into a home? Hunger. Her mother is cursed. That girl will marry a ghost before a man. Ebony ignored them, but inside, the words pricked like thorns. She wanted love, not pity. She wanted someone who would look at her not as a burden but as a blessing. But dreams were fragile things in a place where survival left no space for romance. One morning, her mother called her to sit by the fire. The older woman's face was weary, her eyes carrying storms of unspoken pain. "My child," she began, voice trembling, "the elders have spoken. You must marry." Ebony froze. "Who?" she whispered. Her mother avoided her gaze. "His name is Kofi. Poor farmer. He has no cattle, no land of his own. Only a hut at the edge of the forest. But," she swallowed hard, "he asked for you. He is willing to take you without dowry. I cannot refuse. I cannot feed you forever." The words landed like stones. Ebony's heart sank. She had imagined love, adventure, maybe even escape beyond the dusty boundaries of their village. But now, she was to be married off like a sack of millet, given to another poor man who could barely feed himself. "No, Mama," she pleaded, tears welling up. "Please. I don't want this. I'd rather stay and work." But her mother only shook her head, wiping her tears with a cracked palm. "Child, hunger will not wait for your dreams." The wedding was small, more a formality than a celebration. The village drummers played half-heartedly, as though even the music doubted the union. Women gossiped behind their hands, predicting misery. Ebony wore a borrowed dress, its hem too long, frayed at the edges. Her head was wrapped in faded cloth, and her bare feet trembled in the dust. Kofi, the groom, stood tall but quiet, his eyes lowered. He wore simple clothes, patched and faded, and his hands bore calluses from farm work. He seemed reserved, almost awkward, and gave no speeches, no smiles. A poor girl marrying a poor man. Misery marrying misery. Two shadows cannot create light. The words cut into Ebony, but she lifted her chin, hiding her tears. When the ceremony ended, her mother held her tightly and whispered, "Forgive me, my daughter. May this marriage not be your grave." Ebony followed Kofi to his home, a small hut on the edge of the forest. The walls leaned slightly, as though tired of standing. The roof was thatched but leaking in corners. Chickens scratched the dirt outside, and inside, there was little more than a wooden stool, a sleeping mat, and clay pots. It felt less like a home and more like exile. For days, Ebony moved like a shadow, fetching water, cooking porridge, tending the chickens. Kofi hardly spoke. He would leave early in the morning, disappear into the forest or the fields, and return at dusk with a small bundle of food or firewood. Sometimes he looked at her, but his eyes were unreadable. He was not cruel, not unkind, but distant, like a man carrying secrets. At night, Ebony lay awake on the mat, staring at the cracks in the roof where the stars peeked through, and wondered if her life would always be this: silence, hunger, and shadows. But soon, Ebony began to notice things. Sometimes, when Kofi returned from the forest, his hands were not dirty with soil but faintly ink-stained, as if he had been writing. She once saw a glimpse of a leather-bound notebook tucked inside his shirt, but when she asked about it, he only said, "It is nothing." Other times, he would leave in the dead of night, long before dawn, returning with sacks of food far too large for a man with no farm. Rice, beans, even canned goods from the town markets. "Where do you get these?" Ebony asked one evening, suspicion in her voice. Kofi gave her a faint smile. His first real smile since their marriage. "The forest provides if you know where to look." But the forest did not provide canned milk or imported spices. Ebony knew something was strange. Meanwhile, the village did not let her forget her fate. Women mocked her at the water well. "Does your husband feed you from leaves and roots? Perhaps you too drink only your tears at night." Even her old friends kept their distance, ashamed to be seen with a girl who had married poverty. Ebony bore it all in silence, but inside, her spirit was breaking. One evening, after Kofi had left without explanation, Ebony decided to follow him. She trailed him through the forest path, careful not to step on dry leaves. He walked swiftly, almost as though he knew she was behind him, but never turned back. Finally they reached a clearing. To her astonishment, there stood not a poor man's secret garden but a black jeep, shining even in the dim moonlight. Kofi approached it, unlocked it with a remote key, and pulled out bags filled with food, clothes, and supplies. Ebony's heart pounded. A jeep. In this village, only the chief's son had once owned a rusty motorcycle. This was something out of another world. She gasped, and Kofi turned. Their eyes locked in the moonlight. His face, usually calm and unreadable, now carried an expression she had never seen, fear mixed with something else. "You followed me," he said quietly. Ebony stepped forward, trembling. "Kofi, who are you?" For a long moment, Kofi said nothing. The forest was silent, as if holding its breath. Finally he sighed, running a hand over his face. "I am not the man you think I am," he said. "But it is not yet time for you to know the truth." Her eyes widened. "Not yet time. You let me marry you thinking you were poor, let me suffer shame, let the whole village laugh at me, and now you tell me this." Kofi's jaw tightened. "There are things you do not understand, Ebony. If I told you now, you would not believe me. You might even hate me more." "I already do," she snapped, tears brimming in her eyes. "I hate that you made me part of this lie." Kofi stepped closer, his voice low but firm. "All I ask is patience. Everything you see, everything you feel now, it is only a shadow. The truth will come, and when it does, you will understand why I had to live this way." Ebony stared at him, her heart pounding with anger and confusion. Who was this man she had been forced to marry? A poor farmer? A liar? A thief? Or something else entirely? That night, Ebony returned to the hut in silence. She could not sleep. Images of the jeep, the bags of supplies, and Kofi's mysterious words haunted her. Was he a criminal hiding stolen goods? Was he some runaway from the city? Or was he truly something more than what the village believed? One thing was certain. Her marriage was not what it seemed. And though the village mocked her, Ebony knew she was living inside a story far greater than her own. As dawn broke and the rooster crowed, Ebony whispered to herself, "This is not the end. This is only the beginning." Weeks passed, and Ebony's life with Kofi remained strange. Outwardly they lived like paupers. Their hut still leaned, their mats were still thin, and their meals were simple porridge or roasted maize. But odd things kept happening. Whenever Ebony worried about food, Kofi would quietly return with supplies no farmer in the village could afford. When she fell sick one evening with fever, Kofi produced medicines from a sealed box, medicine she knew only rich city folk could buy. The villagers noticed too. "Have you seen how that poor farmer feeds his wife meat while we chew cassava? Perhaps he is a thief. No poor man can live so strangely." The gossip grew, but Ebony kept silent. She was still angry, still confused. Who was her husband really? One dawn, Kofi told Ebony to dress differently. He gave her a new wrapper cloth, vibrant and rich in color, unlike anything she had worn before. "Where did this come from?" she asked, touching the fine fabric. "From a place where people do not measure your worth by your poverty," Kofi said quietly. "Today you will see." He led her back to the forest, to the clearing where the jeep was hidden. Ebony gasped again when the vehicle roared to life. She had never ridden in a car before, let alone one so powerful. The journey was long, the red dust of the village roads giving way to tarred highways, and soon towering buildings of the city rose before her eyes like giants of stone and glass. Ebony clutched her seat, overwhelmed. "Kofi, why are we here?" "You will know soon," he replied. They stopped in front of a sprawling mansion with golden gates. The house shimmered in the sunlight, with wide balconies, fountains, and guards standing at the entrance. Ebony's knees nearly buckled. This cannot be real." Kofi turned to her, his face serious but soft. "It is real. And it is mine." Her eyes widened. "Yours? How?" The gates opened, and suddenly servants rushed forward, bowing respectfully. "Welcome, sir. Welcome home." Ebony looked from the guards to the mansion to her husband, disbelief clouding her mind. The poor farmer she had married, the man mocked by the village, was being treated like a king. Inside, the mansion was filled with treasure she had never dreamed of, chandeliers sparkling like fallen stars, floors polished so smooth her reflection followed her. Kofi led her into a large sitting room, then turned to face her. "I was not honest with you, Ebony. My true name is Kofi Adubako. I am the heir to one of the largest businesses in the city. My family owns farms, factories, and trade across borders. By all measure, I am a billionaire." Ebony staggered back, clutching the arm of a chair. "Billionaire," she whispered. "Yes," he said, his eyes locked on hers. "But I left that life behind. My father built wealth but forgot humanity. He wanted me to marry for power, to choose a wife like a man chooses cattle, measured by dowry, status, and profit. I refused. I wanted someone who knew struggle, someone who could see beyond riches and love the man, not the money. That is why I returned to the village in secret, living as a farmer." Ebony's lips trembled. "So, you chose me. You let me be shamed, mocked, and forced, just to test me." Kofi's eyes softened. "Not to test you. To find you. You are stronger than any jewel my father could offer. You endured the whispers, the hunger, and yet you never lost your dignity. You are the woman I prayed for." Ebony's heart was a storm. Anger for his deception clashed with awe at the truth. She thought of the village women who mocked her, of the men who rejected her, of the life she thought was doomed. And here she stood, in a mansion belonging to the husband they had all called poor. She wanted to scream, to laugh, to cry. All at once. "You should have told me," she whispered. Kofi stepped closer, taking her hand. "Would you have believed me then? Or would you have thought I was another rich man mocking a poor girl? Sometimes, truth must come after trust." A week later, the village awoke to the thunder of engines. Cars rolled through the dusty paths, carrying crates of food, medicine, and clothes. At the front was the black jeep, and from it stepped Ebony, dressed like a queen with Kofi by her side. The villagers gasped. "Is that not the poor farmer?" "No, it cannot be. Look at the guards. Look at the cars." Children ran barefoot to chase the convoy, while elders stood speechless. Kofi addressed them all. "You judged me by the hut I lived in, by the clothes I wore. But wealth is not always loud. Today I return not to shame you but to give back. No one in this village will sleep hungry again." Gasps turned to ululations. The same people who once mocked now knelt, begging forgiveness. From that day, Abony's life changed forever. No longer the poor girl mocked at the well. She became the woman who walked with grace among riches. Yet she never let wealth erase her humility. She built schools, dug wells, and gave hope to other poor girls who thought their beauty or worth was a curse. And when people asked how she found herself in such fortune, she would smile softly and say, "I was forced into a marriage I did not want." But sometimes the path we fear most is the road to our destiny. But the tale did not end there. One night, as Abony sat by the balcony overlooking the city lights, Kofi placed the leather-bound notebook into her hands. Inside were plans, drawings, and secrets, proof of how he had slowly built businesses under false names, testing his own strength away from his family fortune. "You see, Abony," he whispered, "I was never truly poor, but I needed to know how it felt. And now I want you to walk with me. Not as the poor girl the village mocked, not even as the wife of a billionaire, but as the queen of the empire we will build together." Abony's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in her life she realized, her story was not one of shame but of destiny.